with Alert Day coverage now. This is Wave News.
Thanks so much for joining us. And yes, it is an alert day. I'm Shannon Kogan. A lot of kids home this midday. Many schools decided to close today, including JCPS. Meteorologist Brian Good is joining us right now with the very latest. So things are kind of ramping up here, huh?
Yeah, exactly. The next several hours is going to be the main core of this system here. So let me kind of break down the overall threats, and then we'll get into the ones we're going to see in order for the rest of the day. So the alert day's out all the way through tonight. Flooding risk, especially along and north of the Ohio River, is the case right now. A round of severe storms is likely to move into the area for this afternoon, and then isolated tornadoes will be a part of that. And then in general, wind is going to be strong before the storms, after, and perhaps even several hours after the storms. It's going to stay quite windy. Threat number one has been the very heavy rainfall. Flash flood warning technically still out for the Louisville Metro until another 45 minutes. It certainly extends back to the west into Crawford and Perry counties as well in southern orange. Flood watch is the general area in green, but the heaviest of the rain, the flash flooding, is shifting a little more into areas of Indiana than, say, Kentucky, although we're still going to get a round of heavy rain into central Kentucky coming up. Rain total, it just flashed off of there. We've picked up over 2 inches, though, here in Louisville, but some spots, including Harrison County, not far from Corden, up to 3 inches of rain is actually falling there, leading to high water in many of the area roadways. Number two, of course, is going to be the wind gusts. Just now starting to see them ramp up north and south. We'll see that trend continue to go up, where we're going to get some gusts. We're going to be over 60 miles per hour at times. Again, that's general wind. One thing that'll help drive that is the strengthening of this low pressure. It's moving into southern Illinois right now, already bringing in 60-degree warmth into southern Kentucky, while it's 39 into North Vernon. You see the problem is that warm air surges northbound, sets the stage for a very unstable setup this afternoon. You see the heaviest of rain is focused again across Indiana. A lot of yellow showing up, very heavy rainfall. That'll be the case because the low path is going to stay generally parallel to the Ohio River. So that will keep the heaviest of rain pretty much locked in for the afternoon. For areas north of Louisville. But to the southwest, see this red area, that's a tornado watch that is currently out for areas around Meade County all the way to Grayson County. And it's a watch box we're talking about until 2. More than likely, though, they're about to issue a new tornado watch that will come out across central Kentucky and Tennessee to account for the new development that is just now starting to go up here across western Tennessee, west of Nashville. That is our severe threat that'll be moving in as we head to just after the lunch hour through about 3 or 4 o'clock. But it's important to remind everyone that once we get past the storm threat, the high wind will stay with us. Strong gusty winds all the way through the evening, even if the radar does indeed calm down. The next few hours, especially, Shannon, are going to be the toughest for us because that's when we enter the very strong wind potential and, of course, that tornado threat. Not everyone's going to get a tornado, but that threat is certainly on the table. So we'll talk more about it coming up again in just a few minutes.
Okay, thank you, Brian.
Yeah.
And happening right now, all state offices in Kentucky are closed as of 11 a.m., and that is because of the threat of severe weather. That decision was part of Governor Andy Beshear's Team Kentucky update that just wrapped up. Kathleen Ninke has more now on this Wave News Alert.
One of the first things the governor said, Shannon, was a message for the schools and the districts that closed today because of threat in their area. The governor said, good call. As for what to do now, Beshear said, try to stay off the roads and stay home as long as home is safe. Be prepared for power outages in whatever way that means for you. Have your disaster kit ready to go. Stay weather aware. We certainly recommend staying tuned to our Wave storm tracking team. And don't call 911 for weather updates, Beshear says. That'll just jam the lines. At the state level, the governor says all crews are ready to go if needed.
55, the Kentucky National Guard is preemptively preparing us after everything we've been through. I believe in being over-prepared, prepare for the worst, hope for the best.
The governor also said they've been checking in on previous storm victims who might still be living in those relief trailers. There are shelters set up in a lot of those places like Breathitt and Letcher counties. Shannon.
All right, Kathleen, thanks so much. Now, meteorologist Brian Good on this alert day. A lot of questions people have on what they should do on this Friday evening.
Yeah, it's such a busy part of a day, right? And being a Friday, so I get that. A lot of folks have plans. They want to venture out. And at times, once the storms pass especially, the sun will come back out. So it's going to be a bit misleading through the window on how things will be. But the threats will be there all the way through tonight. And it's multiple types of threats, okay? The first one is a more immediate one, and that is still the flash flooding. A lot of heavy rain has fallen already across Indiana, along the city of Louisville especially. We'll be checking in on that here a few minutes, especially into Jefferson County. Flood warning will be set to expire. Flash flood warning for Jefferson County at 45 minutes after the hour. The rain has eased the past hour, so that's helped a lot. The wind now starting to go up, and we're going to see these numbers just keep going up and up and up as we head through the afternoon. And at times, we're going to get some 60s thrown in there on some of those speeds, even without rainfall. Temperatures are going up fast. Already just got the report in Adair County. Has already crossed over into the 70s now into Adair County at 50 in Louisville, still 40s to the north. But this is going to be changing fast. We're going to see a warm push of air between now and noon, all the way through about 3 o'clock. And then we'll see temperatures ease back down again as we head into this evening. But during that moment, when that warm air lifts up, that's when we enter the danger zone, if you will, of the severe storm setup. Here's the latest with the radar. I'm going to stop in a couple spots. First off, Indiana, this is where you're waterlogged with a flooding threat. It's your biggest issue right now. Jackson County, Jennings County, all the way down to Clark, and certainly into Harrison, Crawford, and Orange County. Several recorded in your areas. Talking about more than 4 to 5 inches of rain has fallen in that area of Indiana. Louisville, we ended up with about 1 inch to 2 inches, depending on where you're at. I think, I know at least in my house in southern Jefferson County, I'm over the 2-inch mark. You're starting to see some light rain picking back up again right over Jefferson County. And then we get into the tornado watch, which is in the red. Meade County, Breckenridge, and Grayson. This is a watch box out until 2. The reason why we're not highlighting it right now is because I think there's going to be a new one that will basically replace it, that would encompass the rest of our area. And that should happen here very soon, because I think that's the main box that will cover most of the region here for this afternoon, the threat. You see the sun trying to come out. This is not good. You don't want any sunshine, especially ahead of this line. Even behind it, though, wouldn't be good, but ahead of it would be even worse. Down to the south, these thunderstorms rolling out of Jackson, Tennessee, heading toward Nashville. Really got to watch these, because they've already got that look where the strong jet is really just ramping up here in western Kentucky. And it's really allowing for these strong winds to get to the ground level. Reports now of some at least minor wind damage starting to come in western Tennessee. We're going to see this really increase right into the surge of central Kentucky. And it's for that reason the Storm Prediction Center, and they just updated this, so it looks about the same, an enhanced risk, and it's about halfway at the scale on the severe threat from the Storm Prediction Center. This would cover your straight line wind damage that can come from some of these thunderstorms, and I'm talking about 70 miles per hour, 75 or higher. That's crazy high, guys. Also would cover the tornado threat that would accompany the line of storms. But that's what this risk is for. The other alert that is out, which is a high wind warning, including much of Louisville to the south, is actually going to be for the general wind that is ramping up now and will stay ramped up all the way through this evening. That could see gusts roughly around 60 or 65 miles per hour, even when the sun comes back out. So it's two different ways of getting high wind, but the impact will be roughly the same for this entire setup this afternoon and for this evening. All right, so here's Futurecast. I'll show you a couple of ways to look at this. As we go through this, through the 1 o'clock hour, temperatures in the 60s. Cells try to form ahead of the main line. Got to watch those as well. But the main line looks to be arriving in Louisville about 1 to 2 o'clock. And then it'll move off to the east of 65 after the 2 o'clock window, becoming an issue for eastern counties. But remember, I said the sun is going to come back out again. Once that happens, it's still going to be very windy after the storms, and it's going to stay windy all the way through 4 or 5 o'clock and for the evening commute. Be careful passing any semi on the interstate today. They're going to have to hold on tight to that. Well, and you need to do the same thing as these high winds blow through. It won't be until the low gets distance from us that the wind will finally start to relax. So to recap the timing again, roughly 12 to 2 o'clock in our western counties to just west of 65. I'll give it a window of about 1 to 3 p.m., roughly around 65, including Louisville, and then we'll extend that out roughly 2 to 4 o'clock east of I-65. There's some wiggle room here because some cells, again, could pop ahead of this line, or there could be a slightly slower speed on some of these storms. But that's a general idea. West-east will be the threat just for the severe thunderstorm side of things. Again, the high wind threat is going to be a separate issue. So hopefully you've already got the Wave Weather app downloaded. We've already had several alerts have been issued. Weather radio, make sure it's ready to go. We just had a flash flood warning that just came out not too long ago, another one. So keep that in mind, and make sure to charge your devices. Plug them in, make sure they're set to go in case you were to lose power, because I do think power outages are likely in this scenario for this afternoon into this evening. Here's your 10-day early alerts. The good news is we've got a quiet weekend. No weather drama there. Temperatures in the 50s and 60s, mid-70s Monday, but we do get colder, maybe some snow, of course, later next week. All right, meteorologist Jessica Dobson is live right now into the storm tracker. Jessica, I know you were looking at some of the flooding reports into eastern Jefferson County. Is that where you're heading now?
Hey, Brian, yeah, that's where we are currently headed. We're right now on the Waterston, or actually 264. We just hopped onto 264, and we are going to be heading to 6 Mile Lane and Breckenridge Lane because MetroSafe has reported that there is some flooding ongoing there. But so far, when we take a view outside, I know the roads were just really bad on my way into work this morning. I know I had phone calls from friends and family who were saying that the visibility was just really bad. It was just pouring. So the good news is that roads have improved quite a bit, but if you ever encounter any of that flooding, just make sure you turn around. You don't want to drive through flooded water. It only takes a foot of water to sweep your vehicle away, even if you think that it's not very deep. It's just you never know, and especially what's underneath that. We've had a lot of rain lately, so you just want to make sure you're being really, really, really careful as you're traveling out and about today. We're going to bring you any sort of shots of flooding that we see in and around the area, and as always, if you can safely relay those reports to us, we will go check it out too. But so far, that's where we're headed right now. We're heading towards Hikes Point at the moment, but we will keep guys listening.
I'm hearing a lot of talk about the pressure. Can you explain that, Ryan?
Yeah, the barometric pressure itself is one of the main ways that we take a look at hurricane, how strong it is by the pressure itself. So we don't hear too much about it with our low pressures that are typical mid-latitude low pressures we have in our area of the country. So when you deal with that idea, though, the pressure dropping rapidly, those of you at your home barometer, a lot of you do, you likely are seeing it fall rapidly at this point. We're seeing some of the lowest pressures move across the Ohio Valley this afternoon, and that in itself takes a toll, not only in the atmosphere, creating a lot of wind and your severe threat, but it takes a toll on our body as well. And it looks like the flash flood warning that just maybe hearing the alerts to go off in your home right now with the weather radio. The flash flood warning for Louisville has been extended until 1:45 for the Louisville Metro. I'll show you that here in just a second. All right, 53 degrees, the current temperature. There's our pressure here at least at All International, 29.28 inches, and is starting to fall. And some of the records have already been reached into Paducah, by the way, of the lowest pressure. The wind fields will react to that as that low gets stronger and stronger this afternoon. The wind will react and go higher and higher. That's separate from thunderstorms alone, but when you get thunderstorms involved in that, well, they just add about 20 miles per hour to your wind potential. And so if we're expecting 60-mile-per-hour winds in some cases in a general wind setup, the thunderstorm can go to 80 in some areas. That is quite powerful indeed, and that can create damage instantly in the area. So we got to watch that setup, and along with, of course, even that tornado potential. All right, there is the first off, the flash flood warning. You see there in Jefferson County, Clark and Floyd, extended out for another couple of hours. General heavy rain continues, though, for those of you in central Indiana as well. There's Jefferson County. We're about to see another wave approaching the knobs. We'll see how this affects travel here on 65, the Lee Hamilton and downtown Louisville. It's going to be a mess with that band of rain pushing back in. Still some heavy rain, too, across areas of Barron County all the way up into Grayson County at the moment. You see a severe thunderstorm warning coming out in western areas of Kentucky. These storms are already starting to produce some damage just west of Nashville. These are the ones that are really going to grow in size and intensity. Now, notice there's a tornado watch that was issued for central Tennessee. Kentucky's next. We just haven't gotten the official alert to kick out yet, but I don't see a way we're not going to get one. So here's the enhanced risk and severe risk. It's about level 3 out of 5 across southern Indiana and central Kentucky. Doesn't mean everyone's going to get 70, 80 mile per hour winds or everyone's going to get a tornado. We're just trying to stress the atmosphere is primed to do just that. So you just need to make sure you're ready just in case we were to get any kind of warning issue. All right, here we go with the futurecast. You can see how the cells start to pop in western areas of the state. A few will try to pop and advance that line. And that's something that a lot of our timing doesn't fully account for. So we got to watch for that potential. That could throw off the timing for some of you along 65 a little earlier than expected. So be aware. We'll take it hour by hour on that setup, but the modeling is at least hinting at it. Your tornado threat does look stronger. I would say close to Bullitt County and south. That's the area to watch that really has a stronger signal than Indiana does. Everyone has that threat, but it's really showing up more and more in central Kentucky, and that's going to be a concern for us for this afternoon, 2, 3 o'clock. By 4 o'clock, most of the action should be east of us. as far as the main line of storms and tornado threat. We'll keep an eye on some of these cells that try to curl back around in southern Indiana for a few hours this evening. But just a very windy setup in general. That will continue all the way, well, really until tomorrow morning. Now, your power outage potential, that's going to go up as well as we're going to see those winds increase. Of course, storms will enhance that. So with the heavy rain we've had today, most of these trees, if they're in a very soggy environment in the ground and they're relatively weak root systems, they can easily topple over, much easier than the wind event we had just this past Monday. So we are expecting more problems when it comes to power issues just because of that idea alone. So be aware of that. And okay, just saw the wind gusts, by the way, just came in out of around Paducah, 72 miles per hour, by the way, into western Kentucky. So again, quite strong out there. All right, so we got the storm threat we'll be watching tonight, the high wind threat, which will continue through the rest of the evening, the weekend. Needs quiet. I think we're all going to just take naps this weekend. And then as we get into next week, warm start, but then we get into a colder scenario with rain likely going to snow. But we'll worry about that later. All right, meteorologist Jessica Dobson, I believe she is live right now in the storm tracker. And we've been monitoring, Jessica, some of these high water reports. Now, the smaller creeks and streams, not the Ohio, those are the ones that are more at risk for rapid rise conditions like this, right?
Yeah, we actually pulled up to 6 Mile at Breckenridge Lane, and there's like the little dip in the roadway, the viaduct, and I'll turn it around. People are actually going around the barricade, but it's I would say it's okay because the water has receded, thankfully. But if you see this and there's standing water behind it, do not go past the barricades. You don't want to risk it. But we are going to check out some of the smaller creeks and streams. I will say at my parents' house in Highview, they're near McNeely Lake, and their creek in the backyard has flooded very quickly. It's come out of its banks very quickly, and it continues to rise. And that's likely going to be the case through a lot of today as the rain continues to fall, even though we're seeing a little bit of a break right now. When it comes to those water levels, there's a little bit of a delay as the runoff creates those higher water levels. So that'll be something to keep in mind, especially if you live near any of those areas. If you're like my parents and you have a creek in your backyard, be really careful. Pay very close attention to the water levels. And of course, if you are driving, I know it's not too bad right now, but you know, it has been very touch and go this morning, and we are seeing the rain come down very quickly. It's a lot of rain that we've seen so far, even just through the past week or so. So keep that in mind. If you see any sort of flooded roadways, never ever drive through them. If there are barricades up like this, they're probably up for a good reason. This water probably just receded pretty quickly, but we will keep you guys up to date with any sort of reports we see of flooding all throughout the rest of this morning and really throughout the rest of
Hardinsburg, now Grayson County around the edge of that warning as well. That's going to cover a good chunk of the area as we get into, I would say, the next 20-25 minutes as you head into that section there of western areas of Breckenridge County, western Grayson County. It's these cells. These are moving fast enough. So some of the communities included in this, of course, for the tornado warning will continue until about the top of the hour for noon itself. But just west of Breckenridge County there, all the way down to western Grayson, that's the zone we're looking at for wind gusts could go up to 70 miles per hour. And again, potential is there to get a tornado that can easily drop down out of some of this activity as it moves through the area. We're going to take a look at now some of the velocity in the area. That's where our main concern is going to be, is some of these stronger wind gusts that can certainly develop within this line itself as we head into areas of western Breckenridge County. Most of the stronger winds look like they're just west of as you head into Ohio County, just west of Horse Branch and into Fordsville. But it's that surge of wind that is going to rapidly build right into the Breckenridge County area here very soon. So even around, say, Stephensport, all the way down to just west of Hardinsburg, that's the area we're going to be watching as we head to the next few moments when it comes to that tornado potential. The wind's very strong, about 80 to 85 knots above our head here at the moment as these storms roll through the region. You can see again that tornado warning that is out till 12 local time, 1 o'clock Eastern time. I know we kind of switch over in time zones in that spot, but this is the cell right into Grayson. Now, really, I think Grayson County, you guys need to be ready because this is going to be next up for you. I'm not sure if I don't think they're under a tornado warning yet. I think it's just outlined surrounding them at the moment that we've got. But again, that tornado warning is out until the top of the hour itself. Let me see if we can get an update to some of these warnings we've got. Again, that tornado watch, by the way, has been issued for all the area coming. Ryan, if you can help me on triggering that, sorry. We're trying to get an idea of where that storm's going to be moving in some of the communities. So if we do a scope on that and track on some of those times, that would help out, because I think that's really going to be the big factor here. These things are moving about 40 to 45 miles per hour, and I think that's one of the bigger concerns, is whether or not we're going to see these move in with those strong wind damage reports. And I haven't seen any damage yet being reported, but these are moving so fast, and these reports are going to be a bit delayed, because the Weather Service office in Paducah is certainly taking control of most of these warnings, and it transfers over to Louisville as you get into Breckinridge County. All right, here are some of the communities. Appreciate that. Right around Fordsville, so just west of Breckinridge County, coming up at about 45 minutes after the hour, and then Hardinsburg itself coming up as we head right at the top of the hour. That's when it should be moving in, with that potential for very strong damaging winds. And again, it could go over 70 miles per hour. This is always a good time. We talked about this with the tornado drill recently that we had. Get into the lowest level of your home, away from windows, into your room. That's key, especially with these strong winds. You got to keep in mind, there is another band of storms just west of this cell moving our way. That means you could end up with a 1-2 punch when it comes to severe weather. Kevin Harnett stayed by as well, the very latest. And Kevin, this is ramping up fast as we expect it to, right at the midday period here.
I tell you, and let's just have a conversation about these winds, Brian, because while we're focused on this perhaps 85-mile-an-hour forward motion of this storm, I mean, they're blitzing past. This is going to be fast. You're going to have little reaction time with these warnings that are coming out today. Obviously, the latest tornado warning we have includes parts of our area for Grayson, or for Breckinridge County, all of that county, as well as Butler and Ohio counties that you see with that severe thunderstorm warning. But in addition to just the speed of these storms, the winds with this area of low pressure that's deepening is just critically strong. We haven't seen something like this. Could be a record low pressure.
Yeah, it did. In fact, I set a record in Paducah about an hour ago with the record low pressure. You're right, and I heard you just mention that 85 motion. I don't know if I can recall that in quite some time on a forward motion. So that's why when you look at the red outline that is showing up for this tornado warning, why it is so extensive. They're trying to be as ahead of the game as they can, the Weather Service says, and making sure everyone's aware. So that's why, again, we want to make sure that even in Grayson County, and I would even throw a Meade into that, you guys be ready for these cells. They're going to be moving so fast into your area. You're not going to have much of a reaction time. Hopefully, you've already had a plan in place as these move through the area. It's important to note, in Louisville, we do not have severe weather as far as damaging winds. We just have heavy rain and flash flood warning. Same story down into E-Town, but it's on the western side of this band here of cells. Those are the ones we're starting to watch. If you look carefully, you can see a little bit of a upside down C shape to them, a little bit of hooks that are trying to develop. That's a good sign of very strong wind shear that is really accelerating. And one of our concerns that is starting to pop up is that once you get into Perry County and Crawford and even into Harrison County, some of these cells could easily trigger tornado warnings for you guys just over the river as well. I know we've been talking a lot about central Kentucky, but these cells are moving fast enough that we can't rule out that we could get a tornado threat that could develop in that area as we head into the next 30 minutes or so. But I think overall, Hardinsburg, you're next up in line to get this. And again, that expectation, Kevin, was coming in at roughly minutes from now, but hopefully everyone's taking their safety precautions, getting that lowest level of the home, and I'm sure the sirens are going off there right now.
Yeah, and we're just sort of scanning in that radar view behind you, Brian. I'm changing the imagery, and you can see the reflectivity behind me. Again, the severe thunderstorm warning is up, but you can also see the outline from the National Weather Service saying, hey, we're just going to flag this whole thing as the tornado warning, because along that boundary we do have some rotation showing up. But when we look at the wind field, and again, you're looking at the reflectivity here. If we look at the wind field on this, we can still see these pockets of wind moving across parts of Ohio County, approaching the I-165 area toward Fordsville. And then that's going to take it right into western parts of Breckinridge County. So that is sort of the zone where you've got a little time. And that's because of the motion, the Weather Service is, and the speed of that, the Weather Service is really trying to give you a heads up to say, hey, go ahead and take the precautions. precaution now. We're giving you a little bit extra time because these things are moving so fast. So, Brian, we've had no reports coming in. The only thing we have right now is the fact that we know we've measured anywhere between 65 and 72 mile-per-hour winds in West Kentucky. Those have been measured. That's enough to do damage. It's enough to bring down power lines and trees and cause some structural problems. We've had no confirmed reports of tornadoes at this point, but we do know that this storm and the whole system itself is moving at a motion of about 85 miles per hour, and that's with that tornado warning. So that's incredible.
It is, and usually kind of not a loosely term that we use on this is that some of the wind gust potential we could see, which is to be roughly 60 to 65 miles per hour. You can add about 20 to that, and that's where you can get some of your straight line wind potential out of this. So even though, yes, it's a tornado warning, there is certainly a concern that as it tries to do some cycling here with the circulation, there still could be just a general straight line wind in that process that can cause quite a bit of damage in that scenario. So both signatures may look similar on wind fields at times, so we're trying to really pick out some of those spots that are showing up, but they're going to be happening fast. You're going to see a lot of cycling here with these cells as they move across areas of Grayson County. Again, Grayson right now not under a warning, but I really think the northwest side there, as you head northwest of Litchfield itself, you guys need to be ready. Some of these cells will be kind of clipping your northwest corner, but also, as we've been talking about, I think Perry County, Crawford County just need to be aware of that as we head to the north. So tornado warning is in effect. Breckinridge County, if you're just now getting a notification, turning the TV on like, oh no, this is it. This is about the time we were getting ready for. Yes, right now it's just one of our counties. It's important to note. Let me see if I can pan this over. But just to the west, I'm able to move it, but just west of there, that is where we've got the second line that is showing up. And this is concerning. And Kevin and I were talking about how this is an issue that may be a marker for how things may play out around Evansville, all the way to Du Bois County and Orange County, that could be displaced about an hour or so after the first line. So this is going to extend basically our window generally roughly through the midday period to about 4 to 5 p.m. But because we have a 1-2 punch coming through, very odd setup to see this as these cells move through the area. You can see all the flash flood warnings that are out as well. So if you're in Breckinridge County, Grayson County, Perry County, and certainly into even Harrison County, be aware, even though you've had some steady rain so far, this is more about the wind fields that are really ramping up more so than gaining a lot of instability. That's the reason why the potential to get some of these winds down to the ground level is quite concerning.
You know, that second line, too, Brian, that we're watching, that really could have an even greater impact than this first line. Obviously, we're seeing rain out of this here in Louisville, but it's that second line that really is going to be closer to the area of low pressure. It's going to be the one that's tapping in more to the winds aloft. So our wind speeds out of that second line could be greater. Now, obviously, we're dealing with the tornado warnings as they move through, but I think, as you pointed out, we're going to have one move through, a little bit of a gap, and then boom, could be the real show coming in with what's out in western Kentucky.
Well, the sun's coming out too in between these.
Yeah,
two.
adding instability.
Right. Yeah. So that, and it's we're not into the max heating of the day. So that is a concern certainly as we head into the afternoon hours. That warning again, Kevin, I saw that it's right now, is it all Breckinridge County? Is that right?
It is all Breckinridge County, and we're communicating with the Weather Service on this. You're not seeing it on the screen. It's in the bottom part, but there's a little bit of a coding issue. When it was typed in, it looks like that the system here didn't trigger that, but we'll work to get that resolved. But nonetheless, there is a warning for Breckinridge County. It includes the whole county.
Yeah, and hopefully everyone's where the radio went off. Hopefully the app, everything should have triggered with that warning getting issued. But if you're hearing the sirens go off right now and you're wondering what's going on, that's the main concern. Now, here's the thing. We don't have typically in this zone here, Breckinridge County, as you head back into even southern Perry County, we do not get as many storm reports as really what is needed in these scenarios to really help us out in knowing exactly how things are evolving under a line that's in this exact zone into west central Kentucky. So these reports, the next 20, 30 minutes or so, are going to be very crucial on how this line is evolving. But there's no doubt this is certainly going to be trending more and more to areas right along the Ohio River, that surge coming northbound. And then, Kevin, that second second line, too, that we were talking about. That's the one that's going to be heading right into the Evansville area to the north and to the east. And it's worth mentioning that the wind fields, I know it hasn't been overly windy yet, but the wind fields really do ramp up the more west you go. And certainly even behind this line, which is the center of the low, is located just south of St. Louis. That is where that pressure record has already been matched into areas of Paducah, Kentucky. That is where the wind's going to stay strong. So we're looking at a good, I would say 12 hours, at least 12 hours of very strong wind potential we have in the area. Right now, the high wind warning should expire at 10 p.m., but it could be a bit longer than that to get these winds to really relax into the area. Always review your safety plans in advance of this. If you're downstream right now into Louisville, Indiana, central Kentucky, this is the mess that's trending your way. No, it's not a guarantee you're going to get a tornado warning or wind damage, but you can see that everyone already along this line is having to take these precautions coming through the area. And looks like another one that's around Bowling Green. That's a tornado warning or a severe thunderstorm?
Yeah, that's a severe thunderstorm warning, and that one's coming in for 70-mile-per-hour winds, and that includes, as you pointed out, the Warren County, Simpson, Edmondson, and Allen counties, all until 12:15 their time, 1:15 our time.
Yeah, and that's heading right into the southern part of Bowling Green. So not too far away, actually, just south of the WKU campus is where we will get some of those stronger wind gusts. Again, most of these cells are traveling. The wind fields are heading, I mean, they're booking it northbound. As you look on this in a scale of north to south, it's basically heading along what you would see as I-65 north-south, but the entire line's trying to get pushed east at the same time. But it's that wind field that's surging along that line, and it can easily translate to some of these very strong winds that are still, again, over our heads, roughly about 80 to 85 knots above our heads at the moment. Some of that wind's trying to get tapped down to the ground level, but I haven't seen anything yet come through the area. So this is still all just indicated by potential and radar, and certainly we've already had at least a history of some stronger wind gusts measured when these cells first got going. So we already know the environment is there. You don't want to take chances in this kind of a setup and just hope these breeze on by and don't cause any damage. But we all know that's certainly going to be a potential as these move through. You see around Louisville, it's mainly heavy rain. Hodgenville, LaRue County, E-Town, same ordeal. But it wouldn't surprise me at all that we end up seeing more of that severe wind potential kind of extend a little more, certainly into Meade County and southern areas of Perry County there.
Yeah, I'm just zooming the radar behind you, Brian. I wanted to show some of the velocities. Again, tough to pick out any particular part, and I'm just going to move the...
Yeah,
it's hard
really
to move in the key.
Up in pockets there on the southern part, but I think that's something we were noting about the warning itself is that they're trying to give as much advance on this as all. This is certainly these two cells here are the two that we need to watch, but the eastern flank, when you see that pushing out right here on the eastern side, that's where you could get some really strong wind gusts that, again, it could be just southeast of even Tell City, and you head just southeast of Patesville itself and west of Hardensburg. Now in Hardensburg, it looks like you got one strong cell that's not too far away from you to your south there, but it's this one right here. It's going to pass just northwest of you, right along 60, and eventually head right along portions of the Ohio River itself. So far, though, I haven't seen any other additional reports come into the area. We did get some reports of some power line poles, I think, that were knocked down, and that was in western Kentucky due to those strong wind gusts. Remember, a high wind warning is also in effect. We have not seen that surge of wind yet.
Sorry to interrupt. You're just seeing they've sort of just reissued that tornado warning for Breckinridge County, and you can see it on the screen. There you go, right behind you. It is just part of the county, so the coding sort of came out wrong at first, but now it does include just the far western parts of Breckinridge County there.
Okay, so if you're no weather radio, your app, everything's going off again. That's likely the cause there. That's the eastern side, again, in that flank of that cell moving in. And it's a double threat here issue with this, guys. We've got the potential to get a tornado that can easily drop out of one of these kind of cells. But again, it's that straight line wind potential to be surging. Look how long that polygon is, going all the way down across areas just west, really, of Grayson County, and then extends all the way into western areas of Breckenridge. So it's accounting for the idea this is going to get several miles of real estate under its belt as it travels to the northeast, and that's the reason why you get that forward motion. You can get quite a bit of wind damage, and that's pretty much the alert we're getting on most of these warnings are coming out today. Will be the idea that wind damage is going to be a significant concern here.
Yeah, and I think it's worth pointing out again, Brian, that this storm is weakening at this point. This probably is not the main show of the afternoon. It really is what's resting back out across West Kentucky that will move in. So at this point, this warning will expire either on time or a little ahead of schedule, it appears. And once that happens, there could be other strong storms embedded in this rain that's moving through, but the real wind show comes in with those storms back across far western Kentucky. So at this point, this storm is weakening. Good news for western Breckenridge County. The warning is still in place at this point. That warning goes until it looks like 1 p.m. So another 15 minutes on that warning. It's 12 o'clock local time for those folks, but it looks like it will be gradually weakening. And should that trend continue, that warning will likely be expiring early.
That's good. That's what the kind of stuff we want to hear about. Certainly, I think some of the damage reports, or at least the high wind reports initially with that cell was most concerning with that, traveling to northeast. Still going to get some strong winds as it moves to the area, getting here in Louisville, and it's certainly across this region along the Ohio River. You guys have seen nearly 2 to 4 inches of rain already today, so that's another secondary threat. We'll make sure we don't ignore it all. I want you guys to be very careful. The rain gauge in Louisville it's not showing up there. I know at my house I'm well over the 2-inch mark, so it's certainly higher than that in many spots. So please be careful as you're traveling across areas. Say the smaller streams, the Beargrass Creek has been rising at times. At one point, I believe it was getting over about 10 feet out of its normal range there. So it's certainly, at least some of the gauges were at that level of 10 feet. So you got to be careful there. Floyd's Fork has been high at times. Same stories yet across areas of Indiana. Roads, again, can easily end up with ponding of water. Makes travel very difficult. We already saw that for this morning. You see that flash flood warning that is out for the Louisville Metro, especially until 1:45. And based on the radar trends, if we keep adding on to this, that will probably get extended again, the way it's looking. And Kevin, you see another set of warnings coming again into western areas of Kentucky, that second line. That's it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out here. We hope that this will try to influence that second line, but it's being so close to that low like that, that's going to be quite concerning.
Yeah, I've drawn in that sort of red shaded area behind you, Brian, to kind of point to it. It's that large blob. There it is. It includes almost everybody along and south of the Ohio River. That's a statement from the, by the way, the tornado warning has been canceled for Breckenridge, Hancock, and Ohio. But what that area that you're pointing at is a discussion from the Storm Prediction Center talking about the ongoing threat of severe weather. And again, just to point out, as you mentioned, back out to the west, it's that really the line of storms that's across the extreme western part of Kentucky that we'll have to continue to watch as the rest of the afternoon sort of rolls around here.
Yeah, that's, again, the low pressure is around closer to St. Louis, so that's where the wind fields really ramp up. We'll see how this band evolves as it moves across areas near 65. You see the cells, see how they kind of bend back to the north and west. That is not what you want to see on a radar trend, certainly in the middle of the afternoon on a March day. That's where you really can get the rotation to really show up in this line as it moves to the north and to the east. So for those of you in Breckenridge County, again, that warning, that tornado warning has been canceled. But unfortunately, you're not going to have too much of a time to relax here. About another, I would say, 60 to 90 minutes, maybe. Then you'll run into the actual second line that will begin to approach. But with the sun coming out, I'm not sure if we're able to pop in the visible there. Thank you. And you
it's
can
like
see
magic, isn't it?
It is, yes. And you can see that perfect. I mean, there's not a cloud in the sky.
Your wish is my command. Be good.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. But look at even the height here of the cumulus clouds. They're really building on the edge of that arc of that band. And again, that's moving into an environment that is destabilizing so much more than really. You don't see that height as much here. You see that one cell that's about to cross the Ohio River there into southern areas of Perry County. But these do not have the more aggressive look to them as they do to the west. And that's just one way we have to constantly measure how the real-time happenings are with storms like this, is looking at the different tools we have, even the ones like a visible satellite coming in, really telling the story here. Again, we always say sunshine on days like this, not a good thing. Also look to the west there. We had a lot of the lines were showing up. That is an indicated of a very strong wind gust even behind this line. That's really, I think, where your high wind warning is going to really kick in for a lot of us, is once this line gets to the other side of your neighborhood. And that's only just a few hours away from happening.
I'm just asking Ryan here for folks. And folks, you know, this is severe weather, so we're going to be in these boxes, and you're going to see us moving around. I'm turning my mic on and off, but I'm asking Ryan if he's seeing anything on social. He's sort of doing all of the digital work back here behind us. Jessica's in the storm tracker, by the way, and Tawana's been here all morning. So do you have anything new? And while you're talking about that using Max 2, Ryan, I'm going to switch over on Max 1 here.
Yeah, I did want to discuss that the Storm Prediction Center here has kind of highlighted an area that you'll see here in just a minute. In fact, I'm going to have to hand draw it here because it's kind of gobbled up by everything that's going on with the tornado watch. But on Max 2 here, you'll see that this area right here that I'm circling, they're talking about increasing tornado potential here over about the next 2 to 3 hours. No surprise, given that secondary line of storms out to the west ahead of the cold front. It's going to have a lot more to work with here. We've not seen any reports of damage within our counties at this time, but of course we've been discussing pretty much here for the last hour or so on social media and here on television in our live streams, of course, that the wind gusts out to the west have been very impressive. You know, we had that 72-mile-per-hour wind gust in Fulton County, Kentucky, the very westernmost county here of Kentucky, and that came out of that line of storms that's now moving in from the west. You see these very large, blanketed, severe thunderstorm warnings with considerable damage threats attached to them because of the 70-mile-per-hour wind speed. They're not going to issue these severe thunderstorm warnings today unless there's a 70-plus mile-per-hour damage tag on there. So we need to continue to watch for the potential for these 70-plus mile-per-hour winds within these storms. That's going to be the most widespread threat we see today with these storms, is going to be the damaging wind threat. In fact, right now we have no tornado warnings on our scope as of this moment, but the deal is that not everybody's going to see a tornado warning today. It's going to be the damaging wind threat that we see. You see that gap between the initial line of storms that's moving through now that's weakening, and then you go out to the west and you see that more impressive line of storms with all of these severe thunderstorm warnings right along it there. This is just west of Evansville, approaching the Wabash River essentially at this point here. So if we go down, you'll see Bowling Green, of course, with that severe thunderstorm warning, and kind of a curious situation. It looks like there's a span of tornado possibly there near Maysville, Kentucky, kind of east of us at this point. So the main threat now is just to our west. We're going to continue to monitor this potential here over the next several hours. We're not going to be out of the woods on this, guys, until we get to about 4 o'clock this afternoon Eastern time. So this is going to be another 3 hours that we're under this threat for severe weather. Now note that once we hit that 4 o'clock Eastern time designation here, we're not completely out of the woods with the wind. The wind gust of 60 miles per hour will continue all the way through this evening, and possibly until after dark. It's going to take until we get a 40-mile-per-hour wind potential or lower to be noticed here. So, guys, we are, of course, kind of in a transition mode between the two lines of storms.
Yeah, it's important to note that all warnings are canceled at this point, or at least expired. So the one Breckinridge County expired a little earlier than expected. We're still on the air, and we're going to stay here until 1 o'clock until the just to make sure these storms pass by. But Brian, you were just looking at some information from the Storm Prediction Center talking about this next round moving in. Obviously, we still have the tornado watch that's in place. We're just now starting to see this low pressure deepen. It's still strengthening at this point.
Yeah, it's to get it all, not too technical, but it's a 977 on millibars, and it's expected to keep dropping to about a 974, which in translation, that's basically allowing the atmosphere to take all that wind that you're seeing that's above our heads and really get down to the ground level. And seeing that sun out is not good,
that's
because
wild.
you end up with a double whammy here. You end up with a strong general wind that is trying to develop, but that only, again, gets enhanced when you get a line of severe storms like we have in western Kentucky. Again, you add roughly about 20 or so miles per hour to their motion, and you really get some very high wind speeds. And again, we've already had at least, I know, the 72 miles per hour. Got a feeling we're going to be hearing more about that, those type of winds. You see the outline there in the red. That is the zone that they feel right now, the Storm Prediction Center, and it makes sense to us because it's kind of the apex of the Boeing, if you will, of how that low is tracking to the north into the east. The maximum wind potential is going to be basically in that arc, if you will, like a backward C is how it's going to translate across western Kentucky through Vanderburgh County, Evansville, all the way into Breckenridge, and perhaps into
right here into Louisville, perhaps.
If it keeps going, which there's not much to really to stop it. And these things, once they get going, it takes a while to get them back down again.
And a couple of things are happening. One, we're destabilizing with that sun coming out, so that's going to add to that forward motion and energy. Two, the area of low pressure is deepening. That's going to add the forward motion and deepening and the stronger winds. So to think that it may stop before it hits Louisville would be probably not wise. It looks like it's probably just going to keep plowing through as it moves in. The one thing that's helping us is we have had rain through a good chunk of the day, so our air is a little cooler. Our temperature here is still in the mid-50s.
And we still got an east wind in the area, so that's some sort of good news that we'll have for at least until we get to the other side of that line. And I got a feeling that's going to be changing. Kevin, though, the shape there of those severe thunderstorm warnings, those polygons, and we call those will likely get very elongated in the next few. They're likely will get issued based on the way this is trending there.
All right, let's just sort of summarize again. We're going to walk you through what's happening. I'll point out that while the tornado watch is in place for the bulk of our viewing area, there are no active severe weather or tornado warnings at this point. We're on with you for 7 more minutes, and then we'll go back to NBC News Daily, and then as this next line approaches, or should any other warnings come out of this line, we'll certainly be here to keep you updated. But for now, you'll notice the only warnings we have are flood warnings, and those are flash flood warnings we've seen time and again. Now, we have a lot of folks deployed out watching the weather. Jessica Dobson's in the storm tracker. We'll show that to you in just a second. Meanwhile, our team is here watching not only what's happening right now with rain falling across Metro Louisville and all of our viewing area, but we're also watching the fact that we have had some high water. We're watching what's coming our way with the warnings back out to the west. You can see those thunderstorm warnings and the flooding that's ongoing. As we take a closer look at some of the rain that's here, and then I'm going to zoom out and show you the wider view back out to the west. But let's zoom in to the Louisville area and just point out a couple of things. First of all, it is raining, and this rain is actually helping a little bit because it's giving us a cooler atmosphere. You know, storms to continue to grow have to have several things. First of all, we have to have plenty of moisture coming in. That typically feeds off of those southerly winds. We pick up that Gulf of Mexico moisture. We have to have lift. We get that with a front coming in. We've already had the warm front lifting to our north. That was one round of rain. The second will be the cold front as it comes in this afternoon. That's the lift we're needing. We have to have some instability. There's some of that developing back out to our west where we saw the clearing, and especially where we see the clouds clearing. That's the sunshine. That's why you hear us say on severe weather days, oh, you really don't want to see the sun. That adds to that instability that we have. And then, of course, we have to have the wind shear. And we certainly have that today. The winds are off the chain. They are going to be wicked this afternoon. So it's really a 3-part deal. If you've been watching us over the course of the past several days, we've said we're going to have to deal with the threat of flooding through the morning hours. We're going to have the severe threat between 11 a.m. and about 3 or 4 p.m. And then we have strong winds that will take us into the evening hours. This is the flooding. We saw that move through this morning. You can see some of that rain lifting back up to the north. We have back out to our west the severe weather. This will be that threat moving in, along with some of the storms that we have on the radar now. But again, let me just pull the radar over so you can see what we're talking about. The storms back out to the west of us are the ones that will be the most robust. Lots of wind with these possible tornadoes. At this point, they're all severe thunderstorm warned, mainly a straight line wind maker, 60 to 75 mile per hour winds with these storms as they move through. Again, sort of moving off to the east, but a little bit of a jog to the north. These storms will be passing by this afternoon. They're moving fast, so it's not going to take long for them to get here. I have a feeling we'll be back on TV this afternoon many times. Any new reports, guys, before we kick over to NBC News Daily?
Well, the wind just got a wind gust there at Western's campus of 60 miles per hour. And some of the wind gusts are starting to really ramp up in that first little batch of cells. That's going to be maybe an issue if it can hold together as we get a little closer to portions of, say, Greene and Taylor and Hart County. That's something we'll be watching. And then that secondary line already seeing gusts. And again, it's important to know that even after this line passes by here, look at Paducah at 54 miles per hour. The wind is going to get stronger even behind this. So it's a very odd setup, Kevin, where we're talking about getting damaging winds today in two different ways.
Yeah, and the winds don't stop with the passage of this frontal boundary out to our west either. The strong winds will continue into the late afternoon and evening hours before they die down. And even some of those winds, we call those gradient winds. They're non-thunderstorm winds, meaning you don't have to have a thunderstorm to see those strong winds, but some of those could go over 60 miles an hour. Prepare for some power outages. It's best to just be prepared. Have some batteries and a flashlight just in case. But it looks like we're going to see some strong winds without a doubt. We're tracking the storms all across the area. Our team is in place. We appreciate you watching. We're going to kick you over to NBC News Daily, and we'll be back as needed. You're watching Wave News. Pressure that's sort of historic in some ways. This is about as deep as they get as they move through here when we're talking about the strength of the storm system. All right, let's go over to Ryan Hoke. What do you have?
Yeah, just a couple of things here regarding that low pressure. They had an all-time record low pressure in Terre Haute, Indiana today, and also a 71-mile-per-hour wind gust was just reported at the Simpson, Kentucky Mesonet station. That's kind of behind the storms right now. So that is what is coming in our direction here in terms of wind gusts, even outside of what you see on the radar at the moment.
All right, I'm just reading some information from the Weather Service, and Brian, you may be able to see it a little easier than me, but it seems to say that they may not extend as the warm front is just sitting across that area. So in other words, it's a little more stable up to the north.
Yeah, we were talking about that dew point. In fact, let me show you. Let me pull up the dew point. That's the easiest way, really, other than wind direction, to kind of see what they're referring to. Once you get into the warnings, which are currently going through the Louisville area, through Clark County, once you go to the other side, your dew point drops into the 40s. That is not going to allow for the winds to get below a certain threshold in altitude. So therefore, they stay aloft, and you don't get them down to the surface, and therefore you reduce the damaging wind threat. But still, anywhere in that zone where you've got that dew point right along the storms, and it's going to be right there, I would say Shelby County, Oldham County, and certainly in Louisville and Clark County. That is still the spot to watch, I would say, for the next hour on this. But as Ryan pointed out, I mean, we are seeing several wind gust reports in some cases that are higher than the line of storms had, and that's what we were trying to caution about. And it's because of the opposite effect. I mentioned the dew point is choking the storms in advance. It's actually accelerating the general wind, the drop in dew point on the other side of the storm. So both two different effects here, but they're both leading to strong wind scenarios, and I think that's going to be the headline as we head all the way through Sunset especially.
Yeah, and I think the strongest wind that we've seen physically reported was that 75-mile-per-hour wind out of Breckenridge County, right?
That's correct. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, so we have actually measured strong winds of 75. That'll do some damage. In fact, it has. We saw Irvington, by the way, that had damage across parts of Breckenridge and Meade County, a few places reporting damage. In addition to the flooding this morning, we're still in that window of severe weather. Yesterday, we were saying 11 a.m. to 3 or 4 in the afternoon. We're right at 3 o'clock. Typically, Wave News at 3 would be on. We're going to keep it with nonstop weather coverage while these strong winds move through. That's probably going to be about another half hour to an hour. And then we're going to get you to the rest of the day's news. Most of it's been weather related, from the schools being out to the problems this morning to the flooding that happened. So, and what's happening now and some of the damage left behind. We have our whole newsroom assembled, most of them assigned to weather related stories today. Jessica Dobson's in the Storm Tracker. Myra's keeping an eye on what's coming into the newsroom. Kennedy Hayes is out and about keeping an eye on things as well. We're going to be checking in with them as we roll through the next few minutes here. I'm going to go back to our camera view. I'm going to zoom this out to our home view. You're going to see that the line of thunderstorms is broken as it hits the Louisville area down to the south. So while we may have some gusty winds moving through E-Town into northern LaRue County, eventually into southern Nelson County, those at this point not severe. Behind this, we don't see a whole lot. In fact, what it is it's just going to be some wind, maybe some spotty showers. There's still a chance for some rain, but the idea is it still stays windy into the evening hours. Our winds at 38 miles an hour in Louisville, but again, to the north, they're much stronger, especially embedded within that. I'm going to go again for our little radar tour as we zoom in. And then we're going to put on the velocity, and I can show you that. While we're at 38 miles an hour in wind, just out toward Evansville, they're at 48 miles an hour. And I see several other places. Brian, you want to jump in? I see you're looking at Owensboro in particular.
Yeah, 62 miles per hour. And again, that's without any issue with thunderstorms that is taking shape. And the reason why it's a little more blotchy with the colors is because we just don't have as many stations to report it. So when they do report a strong wind gust, it looks like it's isolated, but it's actually much more widespread than what you see. It is widespread, 40 to, I would say, 65 miles per hour, just west of 65. And again, that is heading right into the 65 corridor. And that's the reason why, on the flip side of severe thunderstorm talk, is the reason for the high wind warning, which we've talked about before. Is rare to see that. We've had 2 in 1 week.
Yeah, and I'm seeing some up from the Mesonet sites. We've got 59 mile per hour winds out of Hart County and 71 mile per hour winds out of Simpson County. Let me get the radar back here. I want to point out, it just went just north of the area. There's Bedford, there's Crawford. You see some of the areas as you work your way toward Medora. This is over into Jackson County. So this is the northern part of the viewing area. There's US 50, takes you on over toward Seymour. You can go farther to the south. We get into the severe thunderstorm warnings that we have. Strong winds embedded in each of these thunderstorms. So that, too, can cause some problems. Ryan, what do you have?
Let's chat about the impacts from the wind, and that is power outages. The power outage map that we have here really starting to stack up. I'll have this taken full here and query a few of these counties here, especially Grayson County. I want to show you that those folks down there are now at 14% of all customers tracked. That's about 17,000 people tracked. 2,400 of those are without power right now. You go into Hardin County, about 716 folks without power, 2% of Meade, Kentucky without power, and finally we'll stop at Breckenridge, 635 customers without power down that way. You get the idea. These are delayed by 15, 30 minutes in some cases here, so this map's going to light up like a Christmas tree here over about the next 2 hours as those wind gusts of 60, 70+ miles per hour really start to move toward the I-65 corridor. And I just tweeted out this map if you want to see it there. And as always, you can always find ways to submit photos of damage on the Wave weather app. Just tap submit photos and that comes straight to us, Kev.
Yeah, best way to do it right there, because we get it right into our system. We can see it, we can show it, we can appreciate you for being a part of the team on days like today when we need that ground truth. Now, obviously, we started the morning out with rain moving through. We had some flooding issues not long after. We had the tornado watch that was issued. This is the severe weather window of the day we've been talking about. The third element to today's weather happens to be the strong winds that will move in through the rest of the afternoon and evening hours, and that's where Brian was just pointing out that we had 70 mile per hour winds back out toward Owensboro and parts of western Kentucky. That will be a thing that we have to contend with into the late afternoon and evening hours as well. I'm going to go to our camera view. We'll jump in and we're going to zoom into a lot of places. I'm going to start with Metro Louisville. So back to our zoom feature, and we'll just go right into the Louisville area. Some folks probably starting to hear the wind pick up just a bit. You can see near the Portland area, passing by Shively, PRP, approaching as you work your way down farther to the south into even Bullitt County. We've got some of those stronger winds. You work your way across southern Jefferson County, approaching Okolona, winds picking up downtown, rain, Highlands next in line with wind, eventually over toward Linden, J-Town. Those would be areas to see the wind increase just a bit, but even more so farther to the north where we would have some of that wind potential across parts of Clark County, moving up towards Sellersburg as you make your way up I-65. Charlestown would be next. Then New Washington, Henryville, seeing some of that rain and wind. We go into Scott County. You see Scottsburg and Austin, Vienna next in line for some of that wind. Farther to the north, we wind up getting into a little more stable of an atmosphere. You saw Brian pointing out some of those dew points up around North Vernon. They were in the 40s as opposed to the upper 50s and 60s just a few miles away. That's a big difference in when you're talking about the fuel for thunderstorms. storms. You have to maintain the fuel or they cut off. It's similar of why hurricanes sort of run out of fuel when they come over land. So just think about moving into that drier air, just sort of slows it down. It doesn't allow for it to strengthen. Back to the home view we go, pointing out the warnings that we have. Almost all of them are areas of southern Indiana. So when we talk about the warnings that you need to know, you can see Jackson County, Indiana, a warning for 7 more minutes. Clark, Floyd, Harrison, Orange, and Scott, 7 more minutes on that warning. The flash flooding may be a problem until we get
when I take the
all of this out of here.
Kevin,
go ahead.
Just now hitting the airport, very strong wind gusts.
Oh, yeah, wow.
Hitting there. And again, that camera does not move like that.
And you didn't move that.
Yeah, that's that wind. I mean, it's, I'm pretty sure that's rain that's obviously just been whipped up at the very low levels of the atmosphere. But that's looking toward the Jefferson Memorial Forest. You see the UPS, so the main tower there at Ollie International. But the camera is going to stutter a bit because, again, it's obviously going to have a bit of a signal issue with that kind of a wind moving through there. We'll get a report on that in a second. We are able to check on it. It takes about 5 minutes, but we should get a wind gust report of what that was when it came through there, Kevin.
Yeah, right now I want to focus on Metro Louisville. So I'm going to ask the control room to get the tower cam camera ready. I'll ask you guys to get the SkyTrack cameras ready. This is pushing through where we have a number of cameras, so we should be able to show it vividly as it passes through. Let's go to our SkyTrack network and we'll just sort of thumb through some of those. You saw the one from the airport. This is where we're watching those winds gushing in, probably upwards of 45 to 50 miles an hour. That's an estimate. We've also been seeing that winds have in some places been stronger than that, 55-mile-per-hour gust out of the Radcliffe area. There are a few lines down there according to emergency management. This is another camera that we have, our SkyTrack camera on top of the front Park Place. That's downtown Louisville. And you can see we have that camera aimed toward the west, the rain coming down, the wind picking up just a bit. We have additional cameras scattered across southern Indiana. This is our tower cam view. This is coming to you from 725 South Floyd Street, showing the blinding rain moving in, the wind picking up downtown. And then as we look, again, you can see on the top camera behind me, we already see it lightening up just a bit. So once the line passes, we wind up lightening the skies up like nothing happened until you feel the wind kick back in. And that wind will stay strong throughout the late afternoon and evening hours. Again, when we focus on the damage, it has been very spotty, thankfully. When we talk about the tornado threat, it has been there, but it too has been fairly minor. What's not minor has been the wind fields. And the question is, can we tap into that? And can we bring it down to the surface? And if we do, it's going to cause some issues. We've seen it in a few places, namely across parts of Du Bois County, down into Breckenridge and Meade counties. Those have been the sort of hardest hit places where we know we have some damage reports. There have been others. So that's what we've been focused on. I'm going to zoom back into the radar. Again, I'll start sort of on a wider view from Louisville on south. And as we go in, you can see parts of Bullitt County seeing that rain and perhaps a little blast of wind moving through. Not a big deal. Here in Louisville, while we had that wind, notice the narrow nature of that line, very quick hitting. It's in and it's out. The severe thunderstorm warning technically does not include Louisville. It's sort of drawn into the downtown area, but it's really to our north, southern Indiana. Again, as we zoom in, well, I didn't mean to zoom in quite that close, so let me go back to the home view and then we'll go back to the north across southern Indiana. You can see how narrow that line of storms is. It's going to be quick hitting. Additional development trying to pop across far eastern parts of Du Bois County, something to watch. But for the most part, once the line passes, it's going to be the gradient wind, the general wind we have to deal with. Do we know what the wind was at International?
It was, we said about a minute or two left. I don't know if they came in yet.
Highest we've seen so far is 43 miles per hour, but those come in every about 10 minutes, so we're waiting for the update from 310 here.
Okay, so yeah, that one's not in just yet, but we are watching the wind. I'm curious what that wind gust was out of Louisville. I'm going to zoom back into southern Indiana, then we'll bounce back over to Brian. You can see right along 65 is where we have the strongest rain, likely the strongest wind too, and then arcs back to the north. So won't be too long before this severe thunderstorm warning will be allowed to sort of run its course as it moves into somewhat more stable air. Brian?
Yeah, and that's, again, that's the key, is that air, once it gets dry like that, you end up with a lessening on the radar side of things when it comes to severe thunderstorms and rain in general, but you still end up with a very strong wind setup in the area. Let me show you, we actually can track what the wind looks like on the radar itself. And there's the center of low pressure, which Ryan mentioned. I think it was Terre Haute, Indiana, had a pressure record.
Yeah.
And then also in Paducah just set a record as well. The official report came out on that. But you can see that spin. But it's a leading edge right in through here, right into the Louisville Metro. That is where it's thunderstorm-induced strong winds. This is just general wind whipping around. So the wind direction, you're going to notice in your house, your backyard, if you have one of those gauges outside, your little home weather station, you're likely going to notice the wind shifting here. It's been southeast, now it's south, and eventually it'll become more southwest and even due west as we head into this evening. And Kevin, something that was showing up in the data trends after this line, this area of Indiana just kept standing out as picking up some really strong wind gusts as we head into this evening. So that's something we'll be watching carefully.
Yeah, and I just had a report over in southern Indiana, not too far from Sellersburg, where we had 60-mile-per-hour winds there. So again, as you work your way up, you get into extreme southern Indiana, not far from the New Albany area, kind of between the two. Very strong winds pushing through that area, not far from the Lee Hamilton. So again, everybody's in on the action today with the severe thunderstorm warnings. The wind is intense. Let's go to Kennedy Hayes. She is outside, provided it's safe, and she's going to pop up. We'll see her. But Kennedy, just a real quick report where you are, what it's been like the last couple of minutes.
Kevin, we've been out here for several hours. To give you some context, we are on Frankfort Avenue, right by 71. And if you take a look back there, if you see that truck, right in front of that truck is a barricade that was put out by officials to warn them about this area right here that tends to flood every year. Locals, a man who was on his way to work, says last year, the year before that, he's seen cars get stuck. And that is exactly what we saw today. I want to bring your attention first. If you see, I step in this water. This is not even as deep as it gets, and it is past my toes, so you can imagine when cars get stuck how high the water is. I also want to show you over here, if you look at that car, that woman, she's in a vehicle up there, she actually was stuck in this high water, and we helped push her car out of the water. Her engine completely stopped working. So I think that is a reminder for everyone. As the governor said this morning, if you can, stay home, do not get on the roads. It only takes a little bit of water to impact your car. So it's best to stay home if you can. And we are going to be bringing you damage, and we'll be sticking with you all afternoon. We also talked to the woman about what it was like to get stuck in the water, and we have a bite from her here.
About 20 minutes ago, I was door dashing, and I went and I was trying to correct my phone because it got wet, so the GPS was losing its signal, and I seen the barricades right there, but I did not see the water in front of me until I looked up, and there it was, and I was already in it.
So when you saw the water, what was your reaction?
Oh, shoot.
Like I said, we are going to be sticking with you all afternoon and provide you updates and damage as we see it. Back to you, Kevin.
All right, Kennedy Hayes, thank you so much. Appreciate you being out there. The winds didn't look too terrible where you were standing. All in all, things are sort of on track. We're at 3 o'clock. We thought the worst may be moving through at about that time. As these storms pass us, they are moving into a more stable environment, so the warnings have all ceased at this point. Obviously, at this point, we'd typically be in Wave News at 3. We're going to stay with weather coverage for just a little while longer, at least for a few more minutes. We do have some damage that has been ongoing across parts of Breckinridge County. I want to go quickly to Jessica Dobson. I want to get an update on where she is and where she's going. And let's just go to the storm tracker and let me ask her that because I have a feeling she's going to make her way into parts of Breckinridge County where we continue to see some of these problems. Latest one coming in, Jessica, is near Hardensburg. We've had power lines, trees down, and a roof blown off of a home there. We're having trouble hearing you. All right. I think we're having problems with Jessica's mic. We'll get that corrected, obviously, going through. I hear you now, Jessica. Go ahead.
Okay, you can hear me now. Great. Sorry about that. Mic was off, but we are working our way through southern parts of Harrison County. We're going to cross over into Breckenridge County, and that's where we're going to try to get a report of any sort of tree damage. We know that we've seen some of the, or we've heard of reports of a roof blown off, as you mentioned, and we're going to continue to keep a close eye on that. But it is very windy. I will say that the rain has really let up quite a bit, but it is very gusty. I know you can't tell a ton from our outside shot of our camera, but we're going to be crossing over a bridge over the Ohio soon, and then we'll make our way into Breckenridge County, and we are for sure going to let you guys know what we see there. Yeah, you can kind of tell the wind's really picking up now as we cross over this bridge. We're definitely slowing down, but we will keep you guys up to date with what we see, what we find, and we of course appreciate all of your photos and your reports that we've been getting all day long. We'll send it back to you, Kevin.
To parts of Breckenridge and Meade counties. We know we have some damage there. Roofs off of a couple of homes now, trees down, power lines down. That's the one of the zones in our viewing area, right through this area on the Kentucky side, hardest hit. Du Bois County, southern Indiana, seems to be another hard hit area where we had some trees and power lines down. Outside of that, there are no warnings, tornado or severe. We do have the severe thunderstorm, or the tornado watch, and the Storm Prediction Center is talking about perhaps another watch downstream from that because these storms still have the potential as they move off to the east. But again, seeing the bulk of those over toward I-75, these storms, while they're moving through Louisville, we can't let our guard down, especially at this point. It would be off to our south and east that we have to focus on if we're going to see more storm development. The bottom line on it is farther to the north, it is now in a more stable environment because the warm front's laying right through there, and it's only south of the warm front we'd be seeing these storms with any kind of potential. All right, let's go over to Brian Good. What do you have?
Yeah, keep an eye on those wind fields. Again, that's where the warm front you were talking about is located in eastern Jefferson County, but right now we don't know if any of that's even making it to the ground level in that zone. That's why we don't have a warning in that particular area. Looking at some of the cameras, this is a live view from top of Waterfront Plaza in downtown. Certainly still some signs. Whoa, the camera's really shaking that. Still some signs of the flooding from earlier. This is at Huber's. Everyone knows this road, right? That gets you toward the barn area, and you can see that that pond is out of its banks in that area. We'll keep an eye on the cameras into Corydon. Still very ominous looking sky in that area. Now the storms are now into Shelby County, which at the moment, now I'm not sure if this is the lead slide. Sure. It's hard to tell from here, but it looks like it's partly cloudy in that area. But the storms have yet to hit that particular spot there into Simpsonville. It's close. It's probably about 20 minutes away from arriving there. And as we head into downtown Louisville, still dealing with the signs of the storms earlier. But man, you go back into a partly sunny sky rapidly after these storms pass by. But the problem is still, again, which is becoming our main focal point for the evening, is a strong wind gust. You can still see they're up there. E-Town, 53 miles per hour. I mean, that's going to be the trend over the next few hours. As we said, you're going to see the sun come back out, and it's going to be kind of an odd feeling because you're going to experience clouds and rain, think, oh, that was it, it's over, but it actually could be a bit stronger here for the next few hours.
Yeah, I mean, it really may. Let's jump over to Myra and Sorry. She's been keeping an eye from the Now Desk on some of the things coming into the newsroom. I know power outages are ticking up exponentially by this point as well. Myra's sort of been the liaison between the newsroom and the weather department for us. Myra, what is the latest information you have?
Yeah, Kevin, right now LG&E KU is reporting over 10,000 power outages. This is a map from LG&E KU, the latest numbers coming in there. And, you know, every time I hit refresh, I feel like this number creeps up. Earlier when we were on wall-to-wall coverage, there was just 3,200 people out. Now you can see more than 10,000 people are without power. Our viewers have been doing a fantastic job sharing their photos with us, and I want to share some of those with you right now. Here's a photo from Miranda from the Litchfield Walmart. You can see the skies there just kind of gloomy, and they look kind of creepy as well. And then also Jonathan Cook, the wind damage in Vine Grove, Kentucky, 6-foot fence that's kind of been knocked down over there. And Taylor C reports the sun shining bright in Spencer County, right on the Shelby-Spencer County line. And this is something that folks have been saying, oh my gosh, it looks so beautiful out there. The sun is shining. I don't know what's to worry about. But that sunshine, as you've heard Kevin, Ryan, and Brian talk about, is what is concerning. All sunny here in Marion County, Kentucky as well. This is from Sarah Shelburne, Milton, Kentucky right now off of Old Fisher's Ridge, really coming down with strong wind gusts. Yes, it is, Sarah. That is pretty intense. I also want to share a tweet that came out through the Kentucky Transportation Department District 5. This is I-65 North. Crews responding to ponding water in the left lanes as motorists approach the Abraham Lincoln Bridge in downtown Louisville. They have crews staying over this evening to monitor the road conditions as high winds are forecasted. So a big thank you to all of our crews that are out there, first responders as well, working. I showed you earlier photos from WBKO out of Bowling Green. You can see some of the damage reports there at the Family Dollar in Glasgow. You can see that sign that's down. And also, look at this video there of damage reported on Rochester Road in Morgantown. This is video by Lisa Jean McGuire. But I feel so terrible about this. Look at this sign, the White Castle sign fallen onto a vehicle in Bowling Green. We don't know the situation behind this. Hopefully no one was inside that vehicle. But of course, the wind's incredibly intense for that sign to come toppling down with the high winds. Very strong out there. So, guys, again, 10,000 people without power right now. So if you do have power, please charge your phone. You know, do whatever you need to kind of get through so you don't become a victim of not having power right now, because that can be a little stressful.
Yeah, power outage is one thing, Myra. What about the Metro Safe? Are they saying any other problems? We have any traffic problems, any other issues with trees or power lines down with those strong winds that we were watching move through?
I've seen some photos of trees down in Vine Grove, in the Vine Grove area.
Yeah, I'm talking about Louisville in particular.
Louisville in particular. I'm going to check with our newsroom. I haven't heard anything directly there, but I will check with Louisville Metro EMS, Metro Safe, to see if they have anything going on there. But there were barricades up in certain areas that I mentioned where there was some ponding water going on. And as you heard Kennedy mention, a rescue there off of Frankfort Avenue. So if you see that high water, we've mentioned do not drive through there.
Yeah, exactly. And a lot of that came from this morning's rain. Now we're looking at the warnings that have sort of ceased across the area. Really is a wind maker at this point, folks. With the storms moving through, there's still a chance for some strong winds within those storms, but there's also some strong winds that are moving in without storms at all. And we've been tracking those. We've got anywhere between 60 and 75 mile-per-hour winds in places of West Kentucky. It's why we have some power outages even without thunderstorms. We go over to Ryan Hoke for an update on that, Ryan.
Okay, at this point, Kevin, we do have a 64 mile-per-hour gust that was reported at the top of the hour. That was in Grayson County. We've had a report here within the last few minutes from the Midway area. That's just east of Frankfort, with a report of a barn losing its roof and multiple lines down. Again, that's just east of our viewing area, but it shows you how far east the winds are going at this point. What I'm going to do now is pop on sort of the overall power outage map. I know Myra kind of got into the weeds with the exactness of every location, seeing what power outage, but this is more generic, a little easier to see the hot spots here. And you notice that Grayson County is still lit up there with that 10+%. Now it's up to 16% without power. 2,800 folks there. LG&E still just getting some of those reports in, and you see in like Bullitt County about 230 without power. Now Henry County about 1% out without power up there. This is going to light up even more as we go throughout the afternoon because of just how widespread these winds are going to be. We still have not seen at the airport, Kevin, any gust.
It just went to 53.
53 miles per hour. Perfect as I say that. So 53 mile per hour gust at the Louisville Muhammad Ali International Airport just now.
All right, and I'm just looking at a few of the things on the monitor. You can see that wind gust just above my head here. The temperature up to 69 degrees right now. Again, feeding all those strong southwest winds. Severe thunderstorm warnings east of the Frankfort area. That includes Lexington, and then across the Bluegrass region as you work your way east of I-75. So that is a zone that will be seeing those severe storms. These storms that are pushing past eastern Jefferson County and parts of far eastern Clark County up into western Jefferson County, Indiana. They are no longer severe. They had their moment, but the wind continues to just be impressive back out to the west of us, and that's where we've seen a number of damage reports coming in from just the gradient winds themselves. All right, we've had a number of folks we've been talking to. You heard from Kennedy Hayes, who was along Frankfort, had a person run into some high water, had to get rescued there. Turn around, don't drown. We've got Jessica Dobson. She's been traveling across the bridge from Harrison County into Meade County. We can show you what that looks like now from her vantage point.
Hey, Kevin, real quick before you go.
Yeah, go ahead, Brian. What do you have?
68 miles per hour. That's in E-Town.
E-Town, 68 miles an hour,
Yeah.
and that was real time. That's right now.
That's Mesonet.
Let's see if we can pop up the SkyTrack camera from E-Town. You're looking at the Louisville International Airport camera bouncing behind Brian there, and there's E-Town, and it's a little what
the
appears
wind
to
got
be.
a hold of it, so it's going to take me a minute here.
Yeah. So again, it's as the sun tries to reappear, that just mixes the atmosphere, and we start to see some of these stronger winds come down to the surface. But you start to get 60+ mile-an-hour winds, that's going to cause some issues. So, and it can be a quick burst. It's not sustained necessarily. That's why the camera doesn't seem to be all, bouncing around a whole lot at this point. But that wind certainly coming in can cause some issues. Brian?
Yeah, that's, again, that report, these are 5-minute updates that we get in that area. So that happened recently there in E-Town. But again, this hype, you're not really going to be able to tell much. And again, there's not much in the way of trees to really get an idea, too, of how they're moving. But again, that wind field, and this really kind of drives home what we're trying to say is that some of you are going to see your stronger winds after this little wave of storms. In some cases, it's not even storms anymore. It's barely holding together with lightning, except for a few of the cells that are still across southern areas of Indiana. But sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, Kevin. I just want to get that report because that's 68. That's other than our 75 that we had, that's up there. Yeah.
That's absolutely true. And we have had some, that's the best part is when you have the Mesonet, you can get confirmed readings. So we know the wind was that strong. 75 miles per hour in Breckinridge County, 62 mile per hour in Hardin County, 50+ mile per hour in parts of Meade County. We see it because it's measured, and that's so important for us to know what's actually happening. As Brian mentioned that, I was saying we had our crews that were sort of out everywhere. Kennedy was talking to the person that was rescued. Myra's been checking with many of the power companies and some of the emergency personnel, whether that's police, fire, EMS, to give information on where these storms have been going through, sharing some of your pictures that you've submitted through the Wave Weather app. And we've also talked to Jessica Dobson, who's aboard the Storm Tracker. I want to go back to her just to get an update on where she is now into parts of Meade or Breckinridge counties. Jessica, I know you're headed to find some of that damage, but it appears the sun may be shining on you at this point.
Yeah, it's trying to come out. We've seen a couple of breaks in the clouds as this clears out, but the wind, I wish I could show you guys a better idea of the wind because it is moving the Storm Tracker, and the Storm Tracker is a very heavy vehicle, and it is moving it back and forth all over the road. And I'll show you guys outside right now. This is what it looks like. So we saw, we just passed by one kind of medium-sized tree that was toppled over, but we're almost now into Irvington. We're a little less than 4 miles away now, and we haven't seen a ton of tree damage just yet, although I will say the stoplights, they were nearly sideways. They were turned around when we were traveling through Brandenburg, so that was kind of a mess to see. We have garbage cans that are toppled over, trash that looks like it made it all the way to the other side of the street, as you might have just seen there. But so far, it is very, very windy, but we haven't seen a ton of damage just yet, but we're also not to Irvington or Radcliffe just yet. But if we see anything, we will, of course, pass those reports along to you guys. We know we're starting to get into an area that saw some of those higher wind gusts, so we will let you guys know what we see as we venture out.
Jessica Dobson, we'll check back in with her with some of the damage that we've noted across parts of Breckinridge and Meade County. I'm going to go over to Myra Ansari coming up here in just a second. I know we have some new information coming in from Metro Louisville in terms of wires down. In the meantime, let me give you a quick radar update. You can see that we do have severe weather off to our east at this point, Lexington, and then areas east of I-75. That's outside of our viewing area. Some people tuning in at 3:30 saying, why are you on talking about weather? There's no warning. We have had warnings. We have had damage. Kids were out of school today. A lot of people want to know the weather information. We feel like this is probably the most important thing we can pass along today. We do have other news that will be coming up at 4 o'clock, but between now and 4, we're focused on the weather. We're going to get this past us. We're going to get a handle on the wind that will be with us through the late afternoon and early evening hours. You can see the showers and thunderstorms within the tornado watch. The threat of severe weather is still there, but it has been weakening, especially as these storms have lifted to the north. The warm front sits just off to the north of us, and while we are in the warmer temperatures at 69 degrees and our wind gusts have been to 53, it has been certainly much stronger in areas back to the west as that area of low pressure moves through. It's a very deep area of low pressure, record-breaking for some, and it's quite a storm. that's moving through. Let's go over to Brian Good quickly. Brian?
Yeah, that's a good point, and that's the thing. This strong winds. Now we're getting. I think Ryan just mentioned a second ago. Was it about 68?
60 knots in Lexington.
Yeah, so it's up there, and they got a warning out in the Lexington area. So very strong winds above that line, but certainly behind this line, these reports are coming in. Let me see if I can get an update.
While you're doing that, be good.
Yeah.
I just got off the phone with Hardin County Emergency Management. They said the northern end of the county has been hit pretty hard compared to the central and southern end. They've got tons of trees down and power lines down at this time. So Hardin County, northern part, getting hit really hard by those wind gusts there as it moved through.
Yeah, I'm also seeing trees down and perhaps power lines down on 37 South. That's up near Paoli, so that's in Orange County. Several trees reported down across the county there. So those are just some of the reports. Brian?
Yeah, and I'm still getting some of the newer ones into, let's see, what's this, Fairdale Road, I believe, report some trees down in that area. Into even Jefferson County. I got a feeling we're going to, as Ryan was talking about, some of these reports are going to be a bit delayed. But that strong wind gust, we saw it there live in the camera feed that was at the airport, certainly ramping up. I got a feeling we're going to get some reports, though. They're going to still stay up there over 60 miles per hour. In fact, even across areas of anywhere from Breckenridge County back into Du Bois, they just keep gusting up. We keep seeing these numbers climb upward over 60 a time. And once you get over 58, I mean, there's a reason why that's considered a severe thunderstorm warning, is typically you run into damage and once you get to that speed. But as we've mentioned, we have a very soggy ground, so you don't even have to get to that level to start running into problems with some trees that could be toppling over.
We jumped on at 1:30 this afternoon to say, hey, let's keep everybody ahead of the storms, the wind. People were home. You wanted to know what was going on. It's the reason we're going to be on up until 4 o'clock. Then news will take back over and we'll have just general weather. Brian, I'll ask you to cue up the wind speeds, but let's go over to Myra, and a quick report from Myra will reveal what the Metro Louisville has been dealing with over the last little bit. Myra, what do you have?
Yeah, Kevin, we just got some information from Metro Safe. They have wires down reported in the central and north central part of the county, which is the Fern Creek, Okolona area. Around 3:13, they also received a report of a tree down at a home in the 1100 block of Fairdale Road, and we do have a crew headed there to the scene. LG&E KU is now reporting over 17,500 people without power in the area, so that number drastically jumped up. But hey, these photos that are coming in now, wow, look at them. We've got from Shelly Whitcomb, taken around 250 in her backyard in Vine Grove, Vineyville, Radcliffe area. Look at that rainbow that is shining through there during the storm, during the high winds. You can see that there. And another rainbow that's coming in from Sherry Young in Okolona just as the winds started. This is from Jeremiah Cundiff, wind damage there. You can see that fence blown down. So I appreciate everybody sending in these photos to see this rainbow kind of in the midst of all of this. Y'all, I'm sure you can provide some perspective into all of that. This is a photo from Webster, Kentucky, eastern Breckenridge County, from Tyler Jackson. And you can see the clouds there. So we're getting in lots of photos. Appreciate everyone sharing those with us. You know, there's a lot of ponding water kind of starting in a lot of areas. Be careful in those areas where you got that water that's rising for sure. Guys.
Myron, sorry, from the Now Desk. We'll be checking back in with her shortly. Again, showers, thunderstorms passing to the east of Louisville now. The winds are still strong across the area, and that's been the theme of the day. 1, 2, 3 punch. The first was the flooding rains possible this morning. The second, that window between 11 a.m. and 4 p.m. for severe, and then the wind. And now we're sort of transitioning from the severe part moving out to the wind part that will stay with us into the mid-evening hours tonight. The winds are strong. Brian Good's got his eye on all of the anemometers across the area. Brian?
Yeah, in fact, I just got a wind report. Actually, it's a little bit delayed. I think it was about 19 minutes after the hour at Bowman Field. Let me see what that would have been. Looks like it was pretty up there. 63 miles per hour, Bowman Field. That's about the same time we saw the wind gust at Ollie International that was surging up to that 53. So again, that was the difference. But you know, something that Brian was talking about is that some parts of the county, Metro Safe was telling us, have had more tree damage than others. It kind of fits a little bit with that line of showers, and I wouldn't even say thunderstorms because they didn't have a ton of lightning with them, but that seems to match up pretty well with that.
Yeah, I'm still looking back to the west. I mean, you got 62 in Owensboro. You've got 33 Tell City, Evansville at 48, 51 in Jasper. It's going to be a pretty windy evening, Brian, when we think about what happened earlier this week and then last week with these strong wind makers moving in. It's rare for us to have these high wind warnings, and we've had, what, 3 of them?
3 of them, and I only can recall really that we've had, one in the most recent time. I mean, it was a long time ago, and then we had 2 1 week. Looks like we had a new warning, Kevin. Severe thunderstorm warning. This is going to be in the eastern part of the Louisville metro as you head into Oldham County.
All right, we said it would be possible along that line, so let's jump back to the maps here. Let's go and just take a look at the latest severe thunderstorm warning. This includes parts of Henry, Oldham, Shelby, and Trimble counties.
And funnel cloud report. Yeah.
And the funnels with that, so the tornado possible tag is there. Wind speed 70 miles an hour. It's moving out of moved out of eastern Jefferson County and parts of southern Indiana, and now moves over toward parts of Oldham, Henry, Shelby, and Trimble. That warning will go until 4 o'clock. Again, we've said today we're going to treat all of the severe thunderstorm warnings as tornado warnings, meaning you've got to get to the lowest level, away from windows, get in the middle, and protect yourself, because the tornado threat, really when we were dealing with both tornado warnings and severe thunderstorm warnings, many of the severe thunderstorm warnings were producing more damage than the tornado warning. So that's the thinking. The wind field is just so intense. We go to the zoom feature, and we're going to zoom into that. You can see Louisville. I'm going to put Louisville in the frame here with this, just to point out that it is past Louisville. But again, still potential to see some very strong winds with this. As we look to our tools, we'll go in and show the velocity on this. That's when we can see the couplet, so we know where the strongest winds are out of this. Those are going to be the brighter pinks. So as we move across parts of I'd say anywhere from central to eastern parts of Oldham County, that's where we have the greatest potential of seeing the strongest winds. That's going to lift up in some cases into parts of Henry County. Back to the radar we go. That should take it close to Campbellsburg. I'm going to zoom in even just a little bit more as we go back in. We'll sort of name some towns for you where this storm will approach. And as we drill down in, we're right along 71. So this storm is just past LaGrange, likely put down some strong wind and heavy rain in LaGrange. So if you're watching us from there, you're like, yes. Then Pendleton, Smithfield. So we're crossing over the county border into Henry County. That's going to take it across 153 and eventually across 146. Newcastle would be in the target area. So would Pendleton, and so would Campbellsburg. All of those areas seeing the potential for the strongest of the winds out of this storm. And when we're talking about the strongest of the winds, could be anywhere between 60 to 70 miles per hour of wind speeds with this. Could be some damage. We have seen many times today with radar signatures like this that have that potential that it verified with at least some trees being blown down. Now, whether they land on power lines and knock out power or not, still to be determined. You see that information at the bottom of the screen from LG&E. To report and track those outages, you can visit lge-ku.com. It's good to report the power outages as they occur. You can also give them a call at 589-1444 to report and track those power outages. We do the same. Gives us an idea of where some of those strongest winds have been when we look at where the power is out. Now, that's always past the storms, and we like to know what's happening beforehand, right? So we've been here all day giving you that forward information, and now we're starting to continue to see some of the stronger storms pass by that have that potential to knock out power, down trees, down power lines. We'll go over to Ryan Hoke with some information on just that.
Jessica Dobson is now live on the scene with a tree down. If we can get her feet up there, and we'll make sure that she can, of course, put that on the screen here if we can. We're live with Jessica. Hello, Jessica. What do you see?
Hi, so we finally made it to Irvington, and this is what we're seeing so far. Actually, that's the wrong camera. There you go. Here is one of the trees down, and in front of us are actually some live wires. We almost actually went through another area where other trees were down and the live wires were not blocked off. So if you see anything like this, you want to make sure you're being very careful. do not cross any sort of power lines because you have no way of knowing safely if they are down or not. So we've seen several trees like this toppled over in Irvington. This is in Breckinridge County, and we also just talked with someone from the police department, and they said that a tree has gone through the roof of a home, and also the roof has been blown off of what I think he said was a smoke shop. So we're going to head over there after we give you guys a quick shot of this. I'll pan the camera around a little bit more so you guys can see where some of those down power lines are. Where those cones are, you can kind of see, yeah, there's a downed
We're sort of coming back up here. Jessica Dobson was reporting we've taken a power hit. Right as she was talking, Brian was saying we had 71-mile-per-hour winds in Louisville, so that obviously has hit us here in the station. I'm going to ask the engineers to make their way to the studio to make sure we can get everything back up and running. Severe thunderstorm warnings continue to come out downstream. Again, this is going to be for areas farther to the east. Now, what just hit Louisville was not in a warning. We're talking 71-mile-per-hour winds. Brian, jump in if you if you can.
I don't have any PC to work with right now, but
yeah,
but it hit. I mean, what was it? 3 minutes, if that, and then suddenly the
new severe thunderstorm warning there. It looks like.
Yeah, that's northeast of this cell, so that's going to extend into Carroll. It looks like, and into maybe Owen County. That may be, or actually. Yeah, I think it's Owen County in that area. That warning, again, extension of what's happening in Trimble County. All right, I don't have access to the camera just yet. We'll try to get back to the airport. But, yeah, that 71-mile-per-hour wind gust, again, that was higher with a partly cloudy sky basically over the airport. And we have noticed, Ron and I were looking, when you go from Louisville down to about E-Town and Greene and Taylor County, you're running into wind gusts solidly in that zone right now that's been over 60, in many cases over 65 miles per hour. Louisville now taking one of the top spots at that 71 mile per hour mark. But again, this is not a tornado setup into Louisville or anything. These are just general winds we're talking about that are moving through the area. And this is going to, as we just had here at the station, this is going to lead to likely a big increase in the power outage potential. It's going to take a bit of time, Kevin, probably for us to get those numbers, but I fully expect we're going to see a spike with that kind of a gust.
Yeah, no question. So it does take some time, but we're getting all of our computers back up. Most of them are on the generator we've had running, so we just have a few things to get back up. You'll notice the latest warnings. They sort of go down the line from the storms. That would include Carroll County, and then as you work your way past that into the Cincinnati area. So that's moving out of our viewing area. I'm going to go back to our computer, or to our computer. I've got computers on the head here. I'm going to go back to our home view, and you're going to see that with that, as Brian mentioned, those winds that were coming through the Louisville area weren't associated with thunderstorms necessarily. What we saw was partly sunny skies sort of develop, and then boom, we mix the atmosphere, we get those strong winds. Temperatures have pushed near 70, and those winds were at 71 miles an hour, and that really not only shook the building here, but knocked our power out, and I'm sure a lot of folks will be in that same zone. You can see the thunderstorms back out to our east across eastern Kentucky. In our viewing area, the strongest of the storms are moving out of the viewing area, but the winds, and in some cases the strongest winds of the day for many of us, are just now developing and moving through for the balance of the afternoon into the evening hours as this area of low pressure moves off to the north and east. We've been keeping an eye on several things, and I'll point it out again. First of all was the flooding potential. You can see we still have flood warnings going on. That was through the morning hours. We were concerned with that. We said between 11 a.m. and 3 to 4 p.m. we would be in that zone for severe weather. That's what's happening now. That's why we've had the warnings. And then we said after that time frame, between about 3 p.m. and 9 p.m., we're going to have to contend with these strong winds, just a gradient wind. Rain or not, it's going to be windy. And that's what we still have to contend with. And those could be, in some cases, over 60 miles an hour. We just had 71 with some of the showers moving through Louisville. That's 71 mile per hour winds. So that's what's going on. I'm going to zoom back into the Louisville area just to point out that while we do have rain in parts of Louisville, there's really no thunder, no lightning. And the wind that just occurred at its strongest point of the day, and one of the strongest gusts in the viewing area today, had no thunderstorm with it at all. Now, we did have 75 mile per hour winds reported out of Breckinridge County, but 71 mile per hour at the Louisville International, which is located right there. That was intense. And that just breezed through parts of Jefferson County with a number of trees and power lines going down with something like that. Let's go over to Brian Good. Brian?
Well, I'm curious. I'm going to ask Ryan Hoek, actually, if he can answer this off the top of his head, because he's our statistician now. Statistician here for the station.
Not saying much, by the way.
I can't say it. The 64-mile-per-hour wind gust that we had on Monday, that ranked where?
That was the 15th total 64-plus mile-per-hour gust that we had. So I'm going to have to go back and look at this chart.
This has got to be up there, right?
This is way more up there.
Okay.
So this was a top 10 wind gust in the city of Louisville since 1970. That I can say with authority here, looking at that data earlier this week. It's wild to have a 64, then a 70-plus mile-per-hour gust in the same week. This probably has not happened before. Yeah, and it looks like, Kevin, what I've noticed in some of the data trends, our dew point is starting to drop, and I think it's that drop we're seeing. It's really allowing what we call that mixing is leading to that wind surge. So just a heads up, if that were to continue rippling down the pipeline here, if you will, we may see the same thing in like Simpsonville and so forth coming up. Yeah, I want to pass along real quick some damage reports. Meade County says they're investigating several homes and businesses with damage there right now. Also, a fast food business sign is down in E-Town, according to our inbox right now. We'll investigate that as well. So we're going to see a lot of reports like that probably over the next several hours as those continue to come in. So that's not a good situation when you've got that many damage reports kind of coming in clusters like that.
Yeah, indeed, if we hit 71 miles per hour, which we've by all accounts think we did, that would be the 6th strongest wind speed we've had since 1970. So that just shows you how strong these winds are today. Let's go back out live. Kennedy Hayes, she took shelter for a minute while the strongest of the wind passed through, but let's go out to her now. She's been focused on flooding today. Oh, that's a smart driver behind you going right through that water. That's good. Let's go out to Kennedy, talk about the flooding. But Kennedy, before we get into that, I want to hear, how was the wind where you were as it just passed through?
Kevin, the wind has picked up significantly. I can tell you within the last 30 minutes since we last spoke, it rained maybe about 10 minutes. And in that span of 10 minutes, if you take a look behind me, the water has risen significantly. Cars have still tried to get through, but that just goes to show, this weather can change within minutes, and it's best to stay home, stay off the roads if you can. I just got off the phone with Louisville Metro Emergency Services asking them for tips for people who maybe have to be on the roads right now, and they just want to remind everyone, if you can, stay off the roads, but if you happen to be in your car, try to at least have water, blankets, a cell phone, car charger, first aid kit, because you never know what you will come across. It's not raining right now, but like I said, the wind has picked up significantly. Again, right now we are on Frankfort Avenue, right by 71, and we're going to give you updates, of course, throughout the evening. So back to you, Kevin.
So much flooding, wind, we've had it all. We're going to contend with the wind, knocking down power lines in some areas. Myra Ansari, quick update from you. I know Kennedy said she'd been on the phone with Metro Safe. I know you've been on the phone with many others, but that last blast of wind, it had to cause some problems. Is Myra... There you are. Sorry about that, Myra. I should have made sure you were ready.
Yeah, I'm ready. I'm good. I got you. So right now, LG&E KU is reporting over 26,770 customers without power. This is their map. But hey, I want to zoom this in and take you by county. Here in Bullitt County, about 46 people are without power. Jefferson County, 8,000 people are without power. Excuse me. In Meade County, over 1,000 here. So that can, if you go on their map, you can go by zip code and by county and see what the status is for power outages for LG&E KU customers. All right, we are getting some more photos coming through our app, and these photos are pretty good. So Chad Johnson wanted to show some of this fence that is down there in his area in Hardin County. Look at this tree. We've been talking about trees down. Here's one from Kristen Richardson. This is an old oak tree in her front yard, just snapped in two. So that is just how intense these winds are. And look at what Jennifer Allen posted from Elizabethtown. You can see the trees just swaying there. You heard Kennedy talk about how windy it is out there. I've seen a lot of people on Facebook post photos of rainbows as well, kind of what they're seeing. This is from Susan and Tim Kashira from Cecilia, Kentucky, and another tree down. Heather Bristow, large tree, missed our house but caught the fence in Vine Grove. Heather, I'm glad that it missed your house. And also, Ryan was talking about a restaurant sign down, and I want to show you what WBKO, that is our sister station in Bowling Green. And Ryan, I believe that you were talking about this White Castle sign that is down there on a vehicle in Bowling Green. That photo is by Nicole Little. So you can see how intense these winds are. So folks need to be very, very careful. Don't know very many details about if anyone was in that car. I really hope there was not. We're also getting some messages into our newsroom from McCracken County updates. Several homes damaged by storms in the Fremont area of McCracken County. And then you also heard us mention about Nelson County, where folks can seek shelter over there. I'm trying to go through my messages because we've had so much information coming in, where folks can seek shelter there. In Nelson County, the emergency management said that their civic center is open as a storm shelter, which is at 321 South 3rd Street in Bardstown. So again, guys, a lot of photos that are coming into our newsroom. Appreciate everybody sending those in. LG&E KU reporting over 26,000 people are without power across the area. LG&E KU customers, so a number of people are without power. Guys, back to you.
All right, Myra, thank you very much. Let's recap. I've asked Brian to zoom in and sort of focus on the warning that we have. This is a severe thunderstorm warning that goes up till the top of the hour, so it's another 7 minutes on this warning. But, Brian, this really covers a part of the viewing area, but frankly, the winds behind that warning itself are in some cases equally as strong.
Yeah, I mean, we're adding in, let's see, 68 miles per hour now into Taylor County, Campbellsville area. We've had several reports over 60 miles per hour. In fact, let me read off some of the numbers we are now getting in across central Kentucky. Again, the way that's 71, which is one of the higher, it's our area in Hardinsburg, are the highest wind gusts. Hardinsburg was at 71 miles per hour earlier. Still getting a 61 mile per hour wind gust as you head into E-Town at the moment. And right now into, say, Hart County, 58. There's that 68 as you head into Campbellsville. We're watching the severe thunderstorms. Again, they're right on the eastern side of the metro. That warning for areas, I would say really it's eastern Henry County. You guys in Oldham are out of the woods on that one. But Carroll County, there's also one in effect for you all until 4:30. So there's two separate ones that cover this broken line of cells. It doesn't really extend too far to the south, but there is certainly a potential. There could be some rotation with that, but some very strong winds. But right here, Kevin, not to get all technical with dew point again, but that's a measure of moisture in the air. It dropped nearly 10 degrees when that surge of wind happened. So that's dry air, that dry air punch into the area, and that's the reason why we're seeing such high wind gusts. And I know you got some of the latest gusts coming in, and I mean, all those numbers you've got behind you are all, noteworthy on a wind type of day, but certainly on a setup like this, because it's going to last for several more hours.
It will. This isn't going away anytime soon, so folks are like, man, is this blowtorch ever going to quit? No, it's going to last into the evening hours, and we're talking about 62 mile per hour gust in Owensboro. We've got 60 mile an hour gust in E-Town, Fort Knox 56. You work your way down into parts of Breckinridge County. Earlier, we measured 75 mile per hour gust. Jessica Dobson's been out chasing these storms. She intercepted them very close to the Harrison County line, not too far from it was close to Corden. There she made her way down into parts of Kentucky where we had the damage. And Jessica, I can hear the wind, and I know that you're with some damage there. Show us what you've got, and then we'll roll through some of the forecast.
Yeah, definitely. So I'll go ahead and change the camera view around so you guys can see. That's the front of the camera, front of the storm tracker. And here is a tree branch that has fallen on a roof. And I'll turn off the window wiper too so you guys can get a better view. This is in Irvington still. We are talking with police here, and they've been really helpful showing us where the damage has been. It doesn't look like anyone was injured, thankfully, but it's definitely really picked up in terms of the wind gusts here. Our storm tracker has been shaking around constantly, and you can probably hear the wind coming through my microphone too, but this is what we have come across. And we also have had reports of a roof that was partially blown off in Irvington as well. So we're going to try to get some more footage of that here in just a couple of seconds. But yeah, lots of tree limbs blown over in Irvington, and just even shingles blown off several of the homes around this area. So we'll get a check of the roof blown off and let you guys know what we see here in Irvington. Kevin?
All right, Jessica, thanks. She's already shown us so much. We had those power lines down, big tree limb down in front of a home. Now we've got one on top of a home, then part of a roof blown off in a couple places. So we have seen some damage. If you've been wondering why I've been on talking nonstop since 1:30, that's why. We knew that the potential was there today. We have very strong winds across the area. That will continue. The high wind warning is in place until 10 o'clock tonight, and we've seen a number of power outages, and these keep multiplying across the region. So I suspect that here in Louisville, taking that 71-mile-per-hour wind gust is going to allow those winds to, or allow those power outages to continue to climb across the area.
Kevin, is it okay if I read the message that came in the chat there?
Please.
Weather Service even saying that due to these multiple reports of strong winds, we're now out of the stormy phase, if you will, of this historic system. Strong winds are now mixing down. Please keep messaging how dangerous the situation is. Now is a good time to stay indoors. So even the National Weather Service is trying to make sure everyone's aware that, like you saw with Jessica, those limbs are falling. That's just dangerous stuff. So stay inside if you can.
Yeah, good point. Again, we're here to keep you updated. Our whole team has been assembled today, and that includes the news department. We're coming up at 4 o'clock. We're going to have continuous coverage of the weather that's ongoing, along with the impacts it's had. You've been watching nonstop, continuous severe weather coverage from the Wave Storm Tracking Team. We're back with Wave News at 4 right after this.
Wave, your official station for Thunder over Louisville.
Rain, snow, or shine,
we know how Wave Country weather can affect you.
trust the home team.
Chief Meteorologist Kevin Harned and the Wave Storm Tracking Team.